Today is Friday, November 4th, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to a perfectly faded episode of the Beer Temple Podcast. I'm your co-host, Chris Quinn, and I'm joined by my other co-host, who is Mike Shalal. What's up?
Nothing, man. How have you been? It's been a long time since Tuesday.
Yeah, it's been a while. It feels like forever.
It's been a while.
I feel that. Yeah. I'm doing well.
Good.
In fact, I was like, oh yeah, it seems like forever ago that we did the draft episode, which I realized I just put out yesterday, but we really did that a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And then we did the. And
then I realized
we did the snark tank.
We realized that none of us actually wrote down what people drafted except for the whiteboard.
The whiteboard,
because I was too busy, patching Eric in.
Yeah, exactly.
to pay attention to
running
what we were
that.
Drafting.
So we'll see. But I'm doing well. I'm not doing well for some obvious reasons that won't be brought up by anyone on this episode. So won't be brought up.
You still got time.
It won't be brought up.
Okay.
So
The Phillies.
No, don't.
Oh, he's from Philadelphia.
What do you? Why?
Hey, I'm pulling for you.
What the whole country is.
All right. Well, that blew up in my face. But note to self.
Again.
Yeah, I noticed you're not wearing head-to-toe Phillies regalia today like you were on Tuesday.
Those 5 homers were nice.
Yeah, those are pretty
3
sweet.
days ago,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Maybe I need to do it again.
Yeah, it worked.
You're right. Maybe
You should be streaming the game while
I
we
caused
record
it.
like you did then.
I caused it.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the. All right. Well, there you go.
That's a baseball fan take right there.
I was.
I thought about us winning.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Dropped off some beers at Fobab yesterday for competition and for tasting for people. Mm-hmm. Went to a Jim's Original, had a Polish,
Yes.
as you have to when you're down there, which they moved the actual location of Fobab farther from the Polishes and the Manny's pastrami sandwiches.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, not psyched about that, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, so Fobab's this weekend. That should be a good time. Or today, I guess, technically. Mm-hmm. The judging happened today, I think.
Probably still happening, right?
Probably, which is why I opted out of it.
Same.
Thought I would miss it. Haven't missed it.
Right, especially now that I can only really enter categories, that are the lower ABV categories. Sure. I'm sure I would get stuck drinking barley wine at 9 in, which was super cool when I was 26, but, or maybe even 26, it wasn't that cool anymore.
Yeah.
So I choose to not. And it's impressive how many, I was going to say some mean stuff about
great beers.
Great beers.
It's impressive how many great beers there are.
There's a lot of how much delusion there is in some people and the quality of their beer.
Yeah.
That festival.
So it is November. So who knows when this episode is going to come out? But it's going to come out eventually, guaranteed. There's a 99% chance that this will eventually come out, I would say. Probably.
So you got that micro SD in there, right? We're recording? All right.
Oh, yeah. And we're doing a hot take history about Christmas beer. And this episode was proposed to us by someone who said, I think it would be an interesting show. And, oh, by the way, I would be a great guest for this show.
I like
that's
my
our
shameless self-promotion.
That's our favorite way to do it. You want to? Oh, you're going to do all the whole thing? Yeah, come on.
It's funny in the past.
Give you guys
People,
the script.
yeah, people have been like, I've never been invited on. I was like, you don't really understand how this show works, do you?
Give the vaguest inclination you'd like to come on, and you're on, baby.
And then you will be emailed in perpetuity.
Yeah, you'll be emailed 6 hours before we're supposed to record.
Don't now you're giving trade secrets, which I don't appreciate. But anyway, we have a special guest to go over the history of Christmas beers with us, whom I'm about to introduce right now. What's up?
Howdy.
How are you, man?
I'm good.
So tell everyone who you are and how you relate to the beer industry.
For sure. So Mike Williams, I am at Great Lakes out of Cleveland, Ohio. I've been there for 10 years, tons of different roles throughout the brewery, started in the pub, gave public tours. I am reporting through marketing now, so I do some traditional marketing functions, stuff like newsletters, blogs, and all that. But I also do all our company training. So all of our staff training, anyone who comes into the company from Dish all the way up to the CEO, I've had all of them to train them on Great Lakes, but also beer styles, brewing process, all that stuff. Employee-owned companies, so it's important that we all have a relatively high level of knowledge about what's going on in our business, right? I do a bunch of public stuff too, so stuff out of the brewery. I've done a series of online tasting, stuff like that as well. During the dark times where we couldn't go anywhere, we leaned into Facebook Live and all that stuff, but thankfully mostly back in person now. And I'm the in-house Cicerone guy, so I have a group of, I think it's about 7 or 8 guys studying right now. I've had a long week. I sat for level 3 on Wednesday, the written.
Is that master or advanced?
For advanced.
Advanced,
yeah.
Got it.
So I did advanced on Wednesday, taught a public class that evening, and I flew to Chicago on Thursday morning.
Oh, so you did it. You did it in Ohio. They had an advanced.
They have
Ohio.
it online. Yeah.
They do advanced online now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Certified.
I have to have Ray back in here. It's been forever since he's been
Everything, to my knowledge, I'm sure Master's all in person, but they've been doing 2 and 3 online, and I mean, it's great. You don't have to travel. They don't have to send people, and it's still a rigorous examination for sure.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's cool.
So that's what I do, and I'm also basically the house nerd at the company. We have a lot of nerds at the company.
So I saw something in your signature. It said something about like historian or something like that.
Yeah. So when I do, I can cover anything when it comes to what our staff needs to know, but I love the historical side of stuff. So I don't come from production. I come from the more really sales and marketing side, right, and the service side. So I'm really always enchanted by the stories behind these classic styles and even the contemporary styles too, that define what we do in our business these days. So I'm also, if you will, the company historian, Great Lakes specific too. So we're working on an archive. We've got stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
We've got stuff that goes all the way back to the beginning. Hand scribbled menus from like Pat Conway and stuff, one of the co-founders from the early days. So I've been dipping my toe more in that realm as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, then, I mean, we've got someone who's into the history of contemporary styles too at our disposal right now, so we should probably take advantage, because I've always wanted to know about the history and origins and kind of what led to, like, what was the environment that caused double milkshake IPAs?
There we go.
Like, what is the historical precedent for that? Like, what were the conditions at the time that kind of made it an obvious thing that was going to
Pastry
happen?
stouts and all that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about today.
Right, during the
I
great...
thought that's what we were talking about.
The great candying of craft beer.
Well, right. It all goes down to the time that they
2014 to
overproduced.
2020.
Yeah, the government passed the great lactose bill.
Yeah, right.
And it was just...
Yeah, so many of these historical events are basically just trying to skirt tax laws. So when they passed a soda tax in New York, they just started making beers that tasted like candy to get that sugar fix.
There you go.
Yeah.
Supply chain shortage and Mars candy bars
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Michael Bloomberg, the father of modern craft beer,
Yeah.
as everyone knows.
That's right.
Anyway, we'll save that for another episode. We're going to talk about a more historic style, which is Christmas beers, which, thank you, by the way, for offering up that idea. I know it's you guys obviously have. I think maybe the first or second most famous one in the country, I would
That's
say.
what we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Top two for sure.
Yeah. And so I mean, I think we should probably just talk about what Christmas beers are, because I think as a style, well, they're not a style, right? I mean, well, you tell me, is Christmas beer a style, or is it? Yeah. How would you define a Christmas beer?
Depending on
what is a Christmas beer?
Depending on like how you want to, if you want to approach it from a competition BJCP standpoint, there are parameters, of course, that are very specific.
Oh.
But
So it is a BJCP style. I didn't even know that.
there's what is it? Oh, spiced winter ale. I think that's what they call it.
Okay.
So there's a category, and in that, if you're entering a competition, then it's got to be a beer with some spices that are going to recall, the general holiday season, right? So ginger and things like that. But overall, if you kind of look at history, brewing history, and the great traditions, the Belgian, the German, the English, all that stuff, you kind of see from long time ago, you see brewers making beers that are stronger, darker in color, and often have spices around this time of year to celebrate the holidays, because there's the Christmas tradition, Christian tradition, all that, if you will. But if you look at other cultures from antiquity too, a lot of activity happens around the winter solstice. So it's always kind of been, if you look at like the archetypical human experience, some sort of festivity was happening around that time of year. So it's cool to see that happen spontaneously in all these different traditions all at the same time.
Right, and it seems like outside of even Christmas, winter solstice beers, whatever you want to call it, when there were big occasions, I think, special foods and drinks have been part of kind of human a part of our culture for a long time. I mean, even I think the first recordings of like early beer in like ancient Sumeria were very like they were for some sort of festivities, or if not a festivity, but some sort of like I don't know, ritual or something. So it was part of something bigger than just going down to the local and having a pint with the mates.
A lot of religious, ceremonial type stuff.
Right.
Do you guys? This is a deep dig for me right
Go
here
for it.
In my career at Great Lakes. Do you guys remember, by chance, about 8 years ago, we did a series of in-person events?
I know someone who went to it. I wanted to go. I couldn't make it. But I know someone who did. You guys made one of those beers, right?
We did, yeah. And I was the guy who got to brew that thing back in the day.
Talk about that just briefly, because that's a cool beer.
Right. So Pat, the Conway brothers own and run Great Lakes, Pat and Dan Conway. And Pat is really, really, really into history. Which is part of why we've always focused on some of those historical figures, like in our beers like Ness and Fitz and stuff like that. So he had the dream. I know Anchor did it too, and a couple other brewers wanted to recreate the Ninkasi beer, right? That's basically Himden Ninkasi encapsulates the brewing process 4,000 years ago, which is so cool to see. But he had the dream to do it on the equipment that we think they may have used back in the day, as opposed to stainless. So we worked with an archaeologist at the time at University of Chicago who goes to the Middle East, and he was able to provide us some information about maybe what kind of pottery would have been used at the time.
I'm just going to adjust your mic.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
stick it right in your darn face.
I like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, there we go. That sounds better.
Yeah, see?
So then we took the beer on the road and did some events here in Chicago, because Pat went to University of Chicago for his master's and all that. So we were at Fountainhead for one of them, another account downtown, and we brought the beer in clay pots and everything like that.
Right.
People drank from reeds.
Big, long reeds, right? Out of a communal pot.
Yeah.
Imagine that, pre-COVID,
Crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was cool.
Right.
Steve
Tiki
Mastny,
drink.
who's been on the show, friend of the show, was at the event and
That
still
makes sense.
kind of talks about it. Yeah.
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 That's very cool.
So that was fun.
really
I
cool.
figured you guys. I don't think about the Sumerian beer thing too much these days, but I thought you guys would probably appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it. I wanted to go.
Wonderful.
Well, that's cool. So anyway, rituals have always been, well, beer has been tied to rituals or kind of alcoholic consumption. And I think, that seems to be where Christmas beer kind of first started. And then from there, do you have anything like beyond the winter solstice and stuff like that that is tied more closely to what we consider like Christmas beers? Like, where you can kind of draw a line, kind of the next
Sure.
point,
Like
where
as
would that
we
be?
commonly experience them today, like that.
Yeah, or what was the next kind of step towards
Sure,
the
next step.
evolution of where we're at now?
Yeah, specifically, like if you're looking at the full history of everything, what we brew and drink a lot in American craft beer is the spiced winter warmer thing, right? But there were some other traditions that probably preceded that. There's this Scandinavian tradition, again, around the solstice, the Yule beers. So that's kind of the root of Yuletide. We, of course, often use that word when talking about things related to Christmas. So it was the same deal, bigger beers, slightly darker in color and all that. And it seems like they were really a big part of the fabric of Scandinavian culture at the time. So we're talking about, right, turn of the first millennium into the second, so like 900s into the early 1200s or something like that.
And I had heard. Sorry, go on.
No, and they're apparently so. When I'm like talking to staff about these styles and stuff, one of the things I love is the little. You mentioned how taxation. It was kind of like mentioned snarkily about the pastry stouts, but it's also true. Like these crazy like little things in human society help drive the evolution of beer styles, right? And like you kind of see that there were like laws prescribed that apparently that every household had to brew
Right. That's
this
what I was
Yule
just gonna
beer,
say,
right? Which is like, okay, we're going all in on this thing here, right? So, which is also so cool to see how central beer has been to like human society too. You know, the fact that there were laws prescribed about how you did this thing. Of course, I mean, we got Reinheitsgebot and stuff like that, but you see it in other cultures as well.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think Mike was obviously being snarky.
I was not.
But it is.
true.
But it's
Dead
based.
serious.
But no. But it was based in the reality that that is really
Yeah.
one of the main reasons. It's like there's always kind of a historical context to the rise and fall of different beer styles, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not. Now we think like, oh, brewing is so creative, and these are like people making like they're trying to make the best. A lot of the decisions aren't made because of like, oh, this would be a good tasting thing. It's like, well, this is what we have to do now. This is what we have, or this is how we're getting taxed, or this is how we can save some money.
Yeah, we have it pretty easy in the modern day where you can order, grain or hops from anywhere in the world and use exotic spices. But if you were in Belgium in the 14th century, you had wheat and oats and maybe some, what's this coriander stuff and all that, So,
Yeah.
All this is making me want to introduce a level 5 Cicerone, which is like a PhD level where you have to come up with your own thesis and then defend it. And mine would be around why slushy IPA came to be.
The direct descendants of slushy IPA comes from
Right.
the.
Well, I can't say it yet because
right,
it has
right,
to be an original.
We'll look
thesis.
back in 30 years and remember these topics that
Yeah.
Oh, how quaint! How quaint! The original slushy IPA.
Yeah.
As you just drink, as all beer is now served out of one of those rotating Slurpee
Frozen drink
machines.
machines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What do you mean? This isn't how all beer was served?
We'll be going into the beer temple. They'll have one draft line, like they have one cask handle right now, and the rest will just be a rotating Slurpee machine, like it's some sort of New Orleans
See,
daiquiri
I can see it
factory.
going two ways. Yeah, it could be that, or it could be like the newfangled Coca-Cola machines, where it's one machine
Oh, and you
with
just
a bunch
put-
of different buttons.
You get to put your lactose and marshmallow extract
Yes.
and puree right into it, and just squirts it all into the.
and then make it a brown ale.
yeah, and then
You guys can customize it for
Right.
everyone who comes in.
That's right.
Choose,
Exactly.
choose your adjunct.
Wow.
Let's go. Right.
Or all of them.
Where was Doug with this idea last week?
I mean, I'm in a
Yeah.
little machine
Yeah.
that can make like just. And the crazy thing is, oh man,
People would love it.
and you could do it with stout.
You could do it with stout. You could do it with a base. This is a
All
different
right,
show.
this is for the
Saving the
entrepreneurial
show.
show.
Yeah, we can't give away all of our money making secrets.
It's true.
That's for the Patreon episode.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, all right, it's just we're going to be millionaires. That's the billionaires probably.
With the
And I was
big-
here when the idea was hatched.
There you are.
Yeah.
You get 33% of it. 25. Sorry, Serge.
Yeah.
I'll take a lower cut. That's
But anyway, so we have these Yule
Good
beers
negotiation.
that were prescribed by the leaders. And do we know much about what they were like, or what they tasted like, or how they were made, or what was in them, or what made them a special beer? Like, you have to make a
Sure.
special beer. Okay,
Yeah.
well, what makes it special? Do you know? Does anyone know? I mean, it's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, I
yeah.
don't know. I'll just say
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I'm not as familiar with that specific. I would imagine, this is me more extrapolating
Hot take
here,
history, baby.
but
This is what we want.
We got sati, right, and stuff
Right.
like that. So I'm gonna infer that the beer at that time was probably of a similar. Similar nature.
Gruit-esque,
But what's that stuff?
juniper-y.
Everyone out listening to this right now obviously knows sati, right? So they
course.
know it's a high
Everybody.
ABV and
These
a darker
nerds, yeah,
beer,
they
right? So that theme of it being darker and higher in ABV, and then sati, juniper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So spice, and of course that's how they lauder and stuff like that too. But it imparts flavor as well. So that's the key, is that's the common thread you see running through all these different takes on a holiday beer. So
Is that they were
yeah.
bigger. They were bigger versions of the
bolder,
standard.
darker.
Of course, almost by necessity, of course, would be darker because more, grain in the grist and stuff like that and all that. So-
Right. And you literally, before they had artificial heating methods, you could only make pale malt in very hot summers. So like to malt things later in the season, you would have to build a fire or something, which would inherently make the malt darker too.
Yep, absolutely.
So he's also probably a little smoky.
And also,
Everything.
as Mike was saying, if you have basically one type of malt, the more malt to water ratio you have
Right.
to make a stronger beer, it will also directly correlate to how dark the beer is, right? Or am I okay? Which is interesting to think about how it used to be. Like, color was directly related, or was somewhat related to strength.
Yeah, even more so because the malt, until like relatively recent history,
centuries ago.
was always a little dark.
Yeah.
So like
smoky.
so double it. Like now, if you just use more malts, more pilsner malt or something, it's gonna get a little bit darker, but it's not like it would be like brown or
Right.
black. Or anything.
Because I remember when I learned about that when I was home brewing, and I tried to make a dunkel, and I put in a lot of Vienna malt, like a ton.
It's tasty stuff.
Yeah, it's great. But I put in, because I like the flavor of Vienna malt, and I wanted that kind of melanoidin bread crust thing. So I was like, well, I just want to make more. It was like the second batch. So here's a little homebrewing history on me. My first batch ever was what do you think,
Pumpkin
Mike?
beer.
Correct.
Really?
No, it wasn't. Well, it was a bitter.
It was a smooge.
It was a bitter.
smooge clone.
Yes.
I made a bitter first
Sure you
and a
did.
Munich Dunkel.
He was the first
second,
milkshake
with decoction.
IPA.
Yeah.
A bit too easy on that one, guys. Sorry.
And I just used too much Vienna malt, and I thought it would impart just more flavor. But really, what it did is it made I turned it into a Schwarzbier because it came out essentially black.
How much Vienna malt did you use?
Right. I mean,
There's
don't know.
100% Vienna malt beers, and they're like amber.
Right. Well, but I decocted it. And,
Yeah, you burnt
Yeah,
it.
there you go.
It
There you
was
go.
very good. I also learned what you can do is once the beer comes out, then you say what style it is.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's the biggest hack of all breweries.
Yeah.
I worked at Pipeworks, baby.
We totally,
Right.
No, it's supposed to taste like
totally
that.
intended to brew that stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely not a Dunkel, but then I would give people my Schwarzbier, and they're like, "Oh, this is a really good Schwarzbier."
Right.
Exactly.
There
So
you
anyway,
go.
so that's interesting. So we have these Yule beers, and then it sounds like you were saying that was like 1,000 years ago or more. Right?
Yeah, I think they kept brewing them for quite some time, and some examples may have even shown up in the States at some point. as well.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So it's just something that's been continuous to my knowledge. I was reading about, and you know, I'm not reading primary sources and stuff. I'm Martin Cornell and stuff like that. So those guys do the heavy lifting. Thanks to those guys. But it seems like in contemporary, I believe it's Denmark, there's still something that's kind of brewed to this day that's similar. It's not, it's more like a dark pills or something like that. That's got some anise notes, licorice or whatever. But again, it's dark and it's probably a little higher, a little heftier and things like that. And they apparently have this day where for us at Great Lakes, we have this kind of phenomenon too. We have our first pour thing in Cleveland where it's a total insane, the most insane day we could ever have at a brew pub. It's just packed all day. And they do the same kind of thing in Denmark where all throughout the country this like dark pills is tapped all at the same time, like 9 p.m. on
Swansea.
It's like, yeah, it's something like that, right? So there's still been a common thread of that happening, to my knowledge, in the Scandinavian area to this day, which is cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was some sort of a religious ritual. It was tied to a religious ritual, the Yule kind of beers, right? Was it? It sounds like some sort of pagan
Solstice.
holiday, solstice. Yeah.
Solstice.
And I think that, you know, we're going to go a little bit off of our very loose outline here, but it makes me think that, you know, so much of brewing, especially in Germany, was tied to the religious institutions, that it makes sense that they were making special beers for special occasions. And we know about the Lenten beers,
absolutely.
and the Doppelbock, you know, the Doppelbocks and stuff like that. And you know, a lot of those breweries do make, you know, Christmas beers as well. It would only make sense that some of those same Christian monasteries would be making, you know, following in that tradition and making special offerings. If they already have a brewery, you know, that they would make a special beer for a special time of year, especially something like Christmas, which is, you know, very special. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You
That's
see,
all I
and you
was
see
gonna
that in the monasteries in Belgium too, of course.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we're going to go to, I think, England next, because that's kind of where the thread of the modern craft beer Christmas ale comes from, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
So Christmas beer, it's funny. The more we do these hot take histories, Mike, the more you realize that it's like really the English had so much to do with modern brewing. I mean,
Modern American brewing.
no, modern brewing.
Oh, sure.
I mean, even the Germans for a while, you know, the Germans were getting their information from them. The Belgians certainly were getting their information from them.
Well, the Industrial Revolution was just insane.
Right.
Advancements for all those types of things.
Right.
The ability to make pale malt directly led to Pilsner beers being possible. So
Right. Right.
and that comes from England. They figured it out first.
Right.
Right.
I love that story.
And the brewer,
Vienna Lager and all that.
right, Vienna Lager with the fake cane, where he
Fake
went,
cane.
where he dipped his cane into
Yep.
a mash tun in England and brought it back to, I think, was it Spaten or something like that?
That was Sweshat, the
Vienna.
Anton Dreyer and all that.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Vienna malt.
He was buddies with Spaten.
Right, and then at the same time,
Settlemeyer and
Spaten,
Spaten, yeah.
Settlemeyer was there, or sent his son there, or something like that, and he came
Yep.
back, and they had kind of both came up with the same concept of Oktoberfest at the same time.
Those guys were like best friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool story.
But still, like you had these, you know, when they were looking for how to be more technologically sound, the place to look was England at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But anyway, as we're talking about Christmas beer, how does England kind of come into the history of English or of Christmas beers?
Yeah. So at that time, so we're now kind of looking at 17th century, like late 1600s and stuff like that. That's where some of the evidence, we have some written documents and all that. where we see the roots of how they would do this. So it's kind of funny because we were talking about how English brewing and techniques and stuff are so influential on how certainly we do things in the States and how things are done worldwide, but the English were actually one of the last to really buy into hops, which is kind of weird because IPA and other hop forward styles come from that area, right? But I mean, even at this time in the 17th century, they were still, I'm sure you guys know, one of the earlier designations between the two main families of beer were ale and beer, where ale was unhopped.
Unhopped, yeah.
And beer was hopped. So... Am I explaining
And it was an English thing, right?
It was an English thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think by that time it was probably, knowing the Germans, they had probably made that some sort of decree or law
Yeah.
punishable by
15,
death.
whatever,
Yeah, by then. No, I know that
Couldn't collect those tax revenues on
right.
their hops. Right?
Yeah, so the Germans, I think,
yeah.
were pretty early into kind
I mean,
of
that would have been
uniforming.
15, 16 at the latest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we're talking maybe 150 years later, and there's still plenty of, if you want to phrase it this way, malt beverages being brewed and fermented.
And that was the
Right.
origin of the smoothie sour?
Seltzer, of the smoothie seltzer.
of the,
right.
the
Yeah, yeah.
twisted tea.
Yes.
Yes, all of that.
So what would happen is around this time of year, of course, yes, some of these ales, unhopped beverages brewed with malt, would be, yes, brewed to a darker color, a higher strength and all that. But they would also often take them, and we see this in certain celebrations that we have today, they would take that and they would warm it up because it's really cold out and spice it with various, the same kind of spices that we think of today, ginger, cinnamon, honey. So
Mulling spices, more
mulling
like.
spices, exactly, right, yep. And there are a bunch of different specific examples. Wassail is one of the big ones you see, posset, lamb's wool, all that kind of stuff. These were different, essentially like traditional combinations that would be done at the time. So you see that happening in late 1600s, early 1700s. That's very much a straight thread to what we do today in American craft beer, especially with our example at Great Lakes, with bigger, not super big, but mid 7% ABV, malt forward, and then throw in cinnamon, ginger, honey, things like that. Of course, not warmed up today. It seems like that tradition of once England finally fully bought into hopping their malt brewed beverages, it seems like that tradition of heating up beers at the holidays and spicing them kind of faded out because hop forward beer seems to not work very well when it's heated up.
Right.
It's just not as dank, not as tropical.
Yeah.
The
Vibes are just off.
Yeah. Doesn't
Well,
hit
it's
right.
a little
It's not
all over
stoked.
the place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't hit right.
Yeah.
So we kind of saw the tradition of spicing fade out once hop forward beers are around. But then there's
Well,
of course,
also
a
because
replacement.
spicing was, hopping was just a type of spicing, really. Hop now is just the agreed upon way to spice your beer.
Right.
Because they've been spicing beers forever because you needed to balance some of that sweetness, and bitterness was something that was very quickly agreed upon was the preferred way for beer to be balanced, the sweetness of beer. And hops were one of the ways you could do that.
Right.
But yeah, so when I'm kind of giving very like beer 101 talks about it to people who like literally have never even they have no idea what the ingredients in beer are. They might have heard of hops before or malt or something like that. But they don't know what a hop is. I was like, it's basically the spice of beer.
Right.
It's how beer is spiced.
Malt is the soul and
Right.
hops are the spice.
But other types of spice don't really work when you're using this type of
Correct.
hops to,
Right.
to spice it. I think is a way to kind of think of it. If it's heavily, flavored with hops, you're kind of limiting yourself. You can only go. You can go with what, like guava, passion fruit,
Orange juice.
lactose. But other than that,
I was going to say things that are complementing hops, then lactose came up.
yeah, course.
Get with the times, man.
Live in the now, you know? That's what I say to all the historians I meet. Live in the now, man.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. You told that to Ron Pattinson the other day.
Right,
Yeah.
totally.
It's like, dude, live in the now. And then I handed him a can
350
of slushy XXL.
That blew up all over him.
Yeah. And I was like, it's what it's... No, that had just happened. And he looked at me aghast, and that's when I said, live in the now. That's what's supposed to happen when you drink a beer. You're drinking beer, aren't you?
Yeah, but once he had it, it was awesome hearing him say it's so thick, and hearing that 2 C's thick come out of that British accent was just...
At least 2.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, he got it. He understood.
Yeah.
He's self-publishing a book on it.
Threw an Iceman pour into that, and
Exactly. All right.
We'll see the brewing logs.
Yeah, we'll
50,
see the
50 to 100 years from now in
the original blowing logs from 450 North. Yep, we'll have that.
Shut up about Smooge already, or whatever.
Exactly.
Will be named then.
Yeah. It'll be, you have to say something other than shut up. It has to be like, I don't know.
Pipe down about...
Yeah, exactly.
About 350 North.
Exactly.
It's 350?
450.
450.
That's 450.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this English beer, and it was spiced and stronger and darker, and that was the 16th and 1700s. Where does that then take us? Where are we at now?
Yeah, so now we're going into... So once beer, as we know it today, hopped malt beverages is the standard, and you don't really see, again, that meshing between those other spices and the heating doesn't really make sense anymore. We're moving into the 1800s, early 1900s, and the replacement is basically Burton ale, right? So again, very big, darker, thick, sweeter. Yes, also hop forward with the fresh, crop of hops from the recent harvest and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But proto barley wine, if you will, and all that. That is what the English major brewers end up substituting for. Maybe, they might not have been literally the same brewers, but the tradition substitutes that style for the warmed up, spiced ales that were happening before.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the Brits were making bigger, stronger, the quadruple X's and the old whatevers and stuff like that. The old peculiar,
right.
This and that whole
all
style.
old.
Yeah, old. Well, because there was young ale and old ale,
Sure.
right?
Yeah,
and of course,
running ale and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it seems like that. So Christmas beer was definitely a thing. I was looking at, there was like maybe some marketed as specifically Christmas beer that I think like Pattinson or someone was seeing from like the late 1800s and stuff like that. Was there a market for specifically Christmas beer? Like, this is called Christmas beer, and I even saw something. It was either Martin Cornell or Pattinson, which, let's be real, like those are like the two people who like do everything.
Those are the sources.
Yeah, those are the sources.
Right.
We're saying that like the Belgians became really thirsty for Christmas beer, but it wasn't necessarily. It was just like rebranded strong ale from England.
Roll was saying something about that, wasn't he? When
I think so.
Interviewed him, talked
Yeah,
to him.
and he talked to Martin Cornell about it. Yeah, so
Big
it all just goes back. Yeah, so we better hope that those two guys are right, because if not, then everything's messed
We can just
up.
throw this episode out.
If they're not right, no one's going to figure
I don't
it out.
think
Right.
anyone else is reading those primary sources.
Right. So, right. So then you had, because then I had learned that, much, much later, probably, definitely predates the U.S., the modern U.S. Craft beer, Christmas ales, but the Belgians, like so many of their styles, the more you look into it, started making Christmas beers, at least the commercial ones. I'm not talking about the monasteries and stuff like that maybe were doing them.
Bernardus and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
We're doing it as out of like they were realizing that there was all this English beer being imported for Christmas. So they're like, well, we want to make our own Christmas beers. And like, that's how it started. Again, it was like commercial. It wasn't like, I'm so moved by the birth of Christ, I need to brew this beer, you know?
Got to fix that monastery roof somehow.
Right, exactly.
That's when you export it to America.
Right.
For the first time.
And we're also forgetting, I think Samaquaus, I think, kind of fits in there somewhere.
Absolutely.
We're kind of going all over the place now. But it's was one of the first, I think, too, like specifically Christmas beers. In Austria, I believe, right? Samaquaus was from, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Brewed
Don't ask me.
in December, once a year, named after Santa Claus, right? Samaquaus.
Big strong boy.
Yeah, was super strong. Yeah, like 14%. Was the strongest beer in the world for a long time.
Yep.
So that's kind of the origins of it. We're drinking now.
I was going to ask, what are we having?
Yeah, we're drinking Blaugie's. Well, you have to say the words. I don't know what those words are, Mike.
La Manus Spéciale Noël.
There you go.
Which I don't even speak French, but
Well, you could have fooled me.
I drink these beers.
I got the second
I do drink
part.
their beers a lot.
Maybe not the first part, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's their Christmas ale. It's a it's a special Christmas version of their saison.
Yeah.
Of their Manus. It seems like it's just a little it's
spiced differently.
It's spiced differently. It's basically what it tastes like.
It might be a little
to me.
stronger. What's the ABV on it?
Let's look. The ABV is 8%. I'm already a 90-year-old woman who holds up
I like the magnifying glass.
To things.
I like that technique. Didn't put them
was
on.
good.
Just held up the glasses to the label.
Yes,
I think that's about what Manus is.
I think so.
Maybe it's
close
6.
to it. I don't know.
Now they have Manus Triple X. Who knows? They're all over. You got a lot of different ABVs
Right.
over there. But yeah, it's basically just a spiced version.
And DuPont has their New Year's beer, their Super Saison, which is now available year-round. The other thing about the Belgians is I think a lot of them, or there are beers that started out as special beers and then just became these kind of year-round things. Like, I was trying to verify it, but I didn't have that much time. I'd heard that Chimay Blue at one point was brewed first as a Christmas beer. It is their biggest, darkest, strongest beer.
Makes sense.
And
It feels right intuitively, right?
Yeah.
Hot
Right.
takes.
Hot take, baby.
Just own it.
There we go.
Yeah, so now it's, so,
Chimay Blue is definitely brewed for the first time as a Christmas beer.
exactly,
You heard
without
it
a
here
doubt.
first. Now this is a primary source for that
There we
information.
go. Based
Exactly.
on
It's the first time.
an abundance of evidence.
Right.
Vibes.
It's important.
Yeah.
There's at least two that I can think of that started out as kind of Christmas time beers, and then just kind of were worked into their regular rotation. Okay, so where are we at then, Mike, with the history?
Burton Ale and all that. And then that kind of has a nice slide into the 20th century with kind of barley wine life and all that as we know. Not life as we know it, but
Barley wine
it's a
is
little
life.
different
Is that
today. But
Alex
I had to
Kidd
slip that
reference
in.
there,
Come
yeah.
on, right? I almost wore that shirt today, but I was like, I should probably wear a branding thing. I don't know. Now I feel lame, but I have the Maris Otter one, the Maris Otter shirt.
Oh, right.
So, but yeah, so, Bass and all the major brewers come out with, and Bass had the first barley wine, the first, at least the first brewery to actually call it a barley wine. I believe that was early 20th century, maybe like the first couple of years of the 1900s. And a lot of the other English brewers follow suit. So Burton Ale, it seems like Burton Ale kind of naturally evolved into barley wine, if you will, having moved from the bigger like English estate breweries to more industrialized commercial brewers selling to the major cities, right? So, and that's kind of what you see through the first half of the 20th century. And of course, we still keep coming back to that common thread. We know a barley wine is a big beer, and it's super dark and malty. Especially the English style will be more restrained on hops, so it focuses more on those aspects. You don't necessarily see the spicing once we've moved into beer proper. That's something that kind of pops back up in the modern contemporary interpretations, whether it's American or English. So, but as with pretty much every other traditional beer style, you get to the 60s and 70s and people are like, I don't want this. They don't want this massive 8-9% sweet, sticky beer anymore. So many of the legacy English brewers shift into more approachable styles. So Fuller's ESB was actually originally brewed, I believe, as a holiday beer.
It's extra special.
It's extra special, right, exactly. And, of course, that's an example of it was so popular that it ended up then entering as a year-round rotation. Was it Young's, I think, was the first one to call their offering a winter warmer.
Okay.
But nowhere near the massive, big barley wine or Burton ale style that was present before. And going back to that theme, again, what you joked about before, but we know that all the English styles went way down in gravity and all that because of taxation and laws and stuff like that too, let alone cultural preference. So that gets us to the Dark Ages and all that, if you will, those, the 70s and early 80s. And then, boom, American craft brewing comes around. Maybe to a certain extent, camera influence for keeping some traditional cask versions around in the UK. But we're starting to get into 1975, San Francisco, Anchor.
Our
Christmas
very
ale.
special ale, or whatever it's technically called.
I think it's our special ale.
Our special ale.
And also called Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I don't know. It's like it says that on the package. I'm not sure if that's part of the name or if it's...
That was
Anchor Our Special Ale,
It was pre-SEO, so they just threw it all on there.
Yeah,
There we go. Yeah. I like it.
Spiced, changes every year now. I think it always has.
Yeah.
So but definitely a amber ale that is spiced. And yeah, is a kind of a Christmas beer, and that was in the late 70s that came out.
I think mid 70s or so.
Crazy.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Crazy to think that there was this. I mean, talk about an esoteric thing that was just going against the grain when everything else. I mean, those were probably the same time that you had Schlitz going so light that it eventually just collapsed on itself.
I like that it evaporated. It's not clear. It's just, it just doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
It's just give you an empty glass.
Yeah, but when they
this
were
is so delicious.
0 calories.
Right.
Just the race to the bottom in terms of who can be lighter, who can be lighter. Then you have Anchor.
Fritz Maytag over here getting wild.
Being I don't care if anyone buys it. I've got the whole cheese empire. No, just kidding.
That's right.
I got this washing machine.
He was kind of
burn.
He was kind of set. You know what I mean? So he could screw around with these old beer styles and stuff.
Right.
What else do you want from a spoiled rich kid?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We thank him for doing that.
Best outcome. Yeah.
Now here's a question. Oh man, and this is a fail on my part. I didn't look up the history of that beer and what inspired Fritz to make that beer.
That's a great question, right?
Yeah.
Well, we know that he looked at a lot of the traditional historical English styles, and I mean, Anchor may have already been kind of making those, but Anchor Porter,
it was basically an English
Anchor Porter,
brewery,
Liberty Ale, IPA. So he probably went back to some of those traditional sources and
barley wine too, Old Foghorn.
Yeah, Old Foghorn. Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely can't say for sure what inspired him to do that. I can say that beer probably inspired our version in the modern day. Something that's ironic, you brought up the how it changes every year. So one big thing for us, and back when I was given tours of the brewery and all that all the time, in Cleveland there's this crazy, you guys probably wouldn't really feel this here in Chicago and at the Beer Temple and stuff like that. But for us in Cleveland, there's all this crazy storytelling, all these legends that are that's absolutely not true, but somehow everyone in Cleveland believes that it's true
about
our version. Yeah. And one of them, the thing which is classic brewer stuff right there, right? So
the show's
number
all
one
about.
thing though is that they're like, oh, the recipe changes every year and stuff. I'm like, no, man, like it's. But it's ironic
You heard it here
because
first, people. Confirmed.
Changes every year.
For the 2000th time, it changes every year, right? Absolutely. But it's ironic because anchors, they do change every year. And
Right.
Like, oh, those are the guys. They change every year.
Yeah.
And it's great because it allows their brewers to express some creativity with it. And, you know, the different tree on the label every year. It's such a fun
Awesome.
tradition right there. And
Yeah.
then our poor tour guides and like bartenders just get pelted with this question.
I do
by
love when people make
everybody.
up their own mythology about your brewery. Like I've heard so many stories about my brewery that I'm just like, I mean, if you like
Yep.
that, sure. I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, totally.
It's out there now.
Yep.
When Great Lakes' Christmas Ale first came out, like was there a bunch? Does it predate a lot of like the other Christmas ales? It's been around for what, 30?
This is 30 years this year.
30
Yeah.
years this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
92 was first time. A lot of our production beers we opened our second, we were a brew pub from 88 to 92, opened a packaging facility in 92. So a lot of our, long-standing beers like
Sure.
Fitz and River and Elliot Ness and all that. Well, Ness is from 88, but and Christmas Ale being in there too kind of date back to those early 90s years. So 30 years of Christmas Ale this year, which we're obviously very pumped about since it's I always tell people this and it blows their minds, but somehow it's our number one selling beer despite only being available for 8 weeks of the year. So
Oh my God. Maybe you should make it available year round.
Yeah, right? Just like
course,
Chimay did.
Of course, yeah. Well, of course, on January 1st, there we
Right.
go.
Right.
It's amazing how seasonality is still such a thing even in 2022. But at the time, I don't think there was really much of anything like that going on. The story that Pat has told me is that their original brewer was a guy from Schmitz. Schmitz is from Philly, but they had a Cleveland facility. He was in town. He wrote the original lager recipes, Dortmunder and Elliot Ness. The second guy, Dennis Holland. We also had another Dennis Patton. The Dennis Holland, he wrote a lot of the ale recipes. So again, Fitz, River, and things like that. And I believe it was him. He went to the West Coast, and of course we're talking early 90s. So it's like in Cleveland, Ohio, it's like we're one of the only brewers that's operating, and like we have not much context for anything outside maybe some lager. So, and he experienced, I think, the Anchor Christmas while he was out on the West Coast. I don't know if it was a proto MBAA type. Well, MBAA existed then, but I don't know if it was something like that.
MBAA.
Master Brewers Association.
Oh.
Yeah.
Of America.
And he kind of I think he was inspired by that and came back, but the Conways already had that desire to make a beer that really fit the feel of the holidays. So it kind of gets some inspiration from Anchor. Of course, literally all of us who brew in this country have drawn on everything that Anchor set the foundation of first. So there wasn't anything like that in probably, most of the states. And for whatever reason, I get the stories from the Conways and other guys who have been there for a long time. I wasn't there, but it kind of just grew organically. For whatever reason, the right combination of factors, people who live in Cleveland, their backgrounds and traditions, the way the beer tasted, the way it was constructed, the train car that's on the label and stuff like that.
Iconic.
Like 20, so let's say from 92, let's say 20 years later, early 2010s, all of a sudden we've got people lining up all the way around the block. I was actually just talking about this, was it last night? It was last night at the Fobab Brewers dinner. What do we think of when people are lining up around the block for a beer?
Pastry, seltzers.
Christmas ale.
Yeah, Christmas.
Oberon.
Yeah, Oberon.
That's what it used to be.
Hop
right?
Slam.
Oberon.
Hop Slam, yeah.
But that's where I was going, right? Today,
Yeah.
when people line up around the block for a beer so they can buy a couple 4-packs and open one and have 2 ounces each with their buddies and then sell the rest on secondary or something like that.
Right, for sure.
And Oberon would probably be the other big example, but it's so crazy that like people actually line up around the block to just drink the beer with their friends and have fun. And it's like, we can still do this.
Lame.
Lame, right? Who
So
would want to
lame.
do
You
that,
gotta flip
man?
those things.
You
Let's
know?
go.
So
I gotta get some bourbon going. I gotta trade up.
Exactly.
That's why we came out with the barrel aged Christmas ales, so we can get some flipping going on.
Hell
right?
yeah. There you go.
So it's really cool to see that evolution, and then from there, other brewers in the Midwest, our brethren. Actually, I just saw as I was walking from the bar, I saw the Fatheads guy. Yeah, like what's up, guys? Yeah, I love
Yeah,
those
right. We
guys.
don't get
Yeah.
that here. We're upset.
It's Chris's favorite beer,
Maybe one day.
other than Great Lakes Christmas, of course.
Of course. My second favorite. It's the top two beer. I won't say what the other one is, but I won't say if it's one or two, but top two beer is, Headhunter for me. So,
That was a gift from me too, Chris. I bought that at the brewery.
Yep, and
he
whenever
bought
I,
that. It's
whenever
true
I answer
story.
the question what my favorite beer is outside of Great Lakes, that is my answer right there.
Ah,
Yeah,
there you
Headhunter
go.
is the real deal.
See, are you listening there, fatheads? Just send the darn beer here.
There you go.
Send
We
the
will,
check.
we will crush.
Come on,
we
man,
will
you
crush.
can do it, man.
We're unofficially sponsored by Fatheads.
Right. Well, no, I mean, not really, because every time I ask them to please bring beer, they just
Yeah,
unequivocally
what's the
say
opposite
no.
of sponsorship, where you give
Right.
them money?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right,
That's
right.
what we do.
We've just spent a lot of money.
Patrons. We're patrons of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They should open a Patreon that we can just give them money.
Exactly. And get nothing in return.
And those guys are awesome. They're just continuing to another 2 GABF medals this year. When we have 10,000 brewers in the
amazing.
country, it's like they continue to make Cleveland shine as a great brewing destination. So we have I'm sure it's the same deal here in Chicago with Goose or something like that. But Matt at Fatheads was a Great Lakes guy. Some of the other local brewers in town who make some
I
awesome
didn't know
stuff. Yeah, so
Got
they're
it.
definitely family to us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. We'll have to
And then they
use-
have a Spice Winter Warmer. What a surprise. So.
What's
There you
that
go.
one called?
Holly Jolly. It's good.
Got that.
And they also have
love the branding. Sorry, we
they
don't need
do-
to talk about another brewery. It's not
Yeah.
your brewery. Sorry.
No, I mean it's a beer temple podcast.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
I'll give them a shout, and I'm not talking about anyone else. All right.
All right.
Yeah. Only because Chris brought it up.
Yeah.
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 So
What is in Christmas ale then if the recipe never changes? Can you
Yeah,
tell us
right.
some of the
Sure.
secret spices?
let me guess.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Can I guess?
Should we guess?
I don't have it, and I haven't had it since last year. So I'm just going off. So my guess is some of the classics that you're going to have. So it's going to have some going to be ginger in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be is there cinnamon in it?
Mm-hmm.
Is there allspice in it?
No.
No. Is there clove in it?
No.
No.
We keep it relatively simple.
Hold on. I've got one. So those were the two. Is there any like fruit peel or anything like that in it either?
No. No fruit peel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Honey. Honey's in there. Too.
honey. Honey.
Got some honey
right.
in there.
Yes.
And
so
I think
yeah.
the honey is part of, Cleveland, for Clevelanders, it's a beer that's so prevalent that a lot of people who basically drink like macro lager all year drink this during the holidays, and they're always curious why they feel terrible after drinking a number of these pints, and it's the ABV, but that honey, of course, lightens the body up just a little bit, where it lends a high level of drinkability that is deceptive, which is
And how strong is it? It's strong, right?
it's 7.5.
Yeah.
So if you're a craft drinker, that's
Solid IPA, high IPA
exactly right.
level.
Yep.
But they serve it in a lot of these places in pints.
Full pints.
I mean,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
gotten
That's
full pints.
That's
of
what
that.
we do. That's
Yeah.
what we do at the brew pub too, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. So okay. So you keep it simple. So it's ginger, cinnamon, honey, and maybe some special juju or
Special
something.
sauce.
We're talking
Yeah.
just a lot of love from the brewing team.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No Belgian brewer secrets here. No secret ingredient tucked in there that gives it the special edge. But what's fun is that you see our brewing brethren who many of them again work for us, but we're also inspired to make their own version. And of course, when you look at the commercial side, like it makes sense.
Right.
If ours is very successful, you want to make one too. They all make something that's similar, pale malt base, some crystal and stuff like that. The spices, light hopping rate. It's not obviously, again, not about the hops. But they each add in their own little nuance. Like a lot of them have cinnamon and ginger, but then they'll do some nutmeg or they'll do some orange peel or things like that to make them distinct and kind of stand out. This is something that we've seen, especially over the past, let's say, the past 5 years, where tap rooms abound everywhere throughout the country, which is amazing. Love it. Fatheads has been doing their winter warmer for quite some time. We got Thirsty Dog down in Akron. That's the big one where one of the legends is that somehow our Christmas ale recipe, the original recipe, migrated down to them. Tim at Thirsty Dog was one of our shift brewers back in the day. But
that's the original. So almost like a St. Bernardus, Weistefan. Oh no, West Valletta
right.
Type
deal. I've never thought about that before. Yeah,
the Great Lakes one changes every year. So exactly. Thirsty Dog is brewing the original recipe.
The first year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
But what's
or every year they're doing it, but they're starting back from '88, and then they're doing
92.
every year. No, they've got the original.
Oh, got the '88 one. Oh wow.
Yeah, and then they change it the same
Cenotaph.
way. So it's just set back by however many years it is. So it's 10 years behind.
Got it.
Every year.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Totally.
Easy to do.
Yeah.
Just steal it every year.
Yeah.
And then wait 10 years.
Trailing edge flavor profiles.
Yeah.
Right. So much nostalgia. Yeah. So, but now with all the proliferation of tap rooms all throughout the country, what we've seen brewers, and actually it was perfect on my Uber over here. Our social guy sent me a post from, it's Kilowatt in San Diego, and they make a brewery in San Diego. They make where
it's Christmas every day.
Right, 75 and sunny, my goodness. So yeah, but they make a spice winter warmer that's theirs is probably a little bit stronger. I think they do 9% or something like that, but similar spice. They basically said they were tapping it, and it's a hybrid between our two favorites, Great Lakes Christmas Ale and one of the Belgian Strongs.
Okay.
So it's kind of got that vibe going on.
Cool.
So we were just my goodness, there's a brewery in San Diego that's doing this spiced winter warmer thing that obviously we're not the only brewers who do this, but it kind of seems like we were, the one that really caught fire and then inspired a lot of other brewers to do the same thing. So
Totally. I would agree.
Pretty cool.
I would say for the modern Christmas beer, the archetype of the flavor profile is, in my mind, without a doubt, Great Lakes. I mean, Anchor is its own thing.
Right.
And it has that whole history. They've got the magnums. They've got the changing labels every year, which is awesome. But if you want to, what is the flavor of a U.S. Christmas beer? Without a doubt, it's Great Lakes. And then everything else from there is either, that's the...
Varies between homage and plagiarism. So.
Well, no, but that's what you judge it against. It's like Guinness and dry stout. So you cannot
Guinness is great.
When you describe what a dry Irish stout tastes like, you're doing it against Guinness. And I think in Great Lake, I tend to do that more for U.S. ones specifically, not for the Belgians. Which is really where we're at now. It's like a U.S. and Belgian thing, really. I mean, there are still Christmas beers from England, but not many of them. I think Harvey's sends them theirs here, but that's about it that I can think of. It gives you that kind of Christmas cookie flavor without it being like drinking a cookie. So sorry for those of you out there who are looking for that. There's no other ones doing that
pastry.
Now. Yeah. Proto pastry. Maybe we should have had that in our pastry stout history episode. We should have put great. No, I'm kidding. Great Lakes Christmas. I'm joking. Christmas cookie.
No, Southern Tier needs the.
I was gonna say there again.
Yeah. No.
That's the way.
That episode's already happened.
Too Xmas.
A little creme brulee.
Yeah. And I mean, it only makes sense that other breweries are going to be inspired. I mean, it's also, if you think about it, it's just all coming back full circle since your the original brewer is inspired by a California brewery. Now this is a California brewery inspired by you guys. So it's like,
hey, I love that.
Yeah. So it's neat. Yeah. And like since Christmas ale from Great Lakes has come out, has there been any other
like
evolutions of Christmas beers? I think the Belgians there's been more people doing them in Belgium, I think, in the past 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything that you would say that's improved upon or significantly changed what was happening. I think once you go into that spice region, even if you change the spices up, you're not really innovating, the buzzword of this whole show.
The I word.
Yeah. You're not creating a new style of Christmas, winter warmer or amber thing. You're just kind of iterating upon what's come before.
Sure. But so I always talk about this with my staff and all that too. Going back to the original spirit, kind of what like holiday beers are generally, we see in American craft, we don't limit ourselves to anything, as we've alluded to many times. But we have some dialed-in versions of other festive beers brewed at this time of year. I was very happy to have my first celebration of the year right before I flew out.
We just got it here.
Yep. It just hit for us. Just started releasing this week. So after my long day with my mind-numbing exam and all that stuff, I had a celebration at the end of today. I was like, I'm going to Phobab. All right, I feel good. You got your, like Zogavesa from Stone, a spiced stout. I mean, it's the Mexican hot chocolate thing, but they release it this time of year, to my knowledge. My goodness, What Bells, Winter White. There's all sorts of other fun examples of making something special for this time of year. It's not many examples are like what we do. But there are other, that's why I love about what we do in the States with our brewing is that it doesn't have to be this one thing. It can be an expression of IPA or stout or something else that really encapsulates the feel of the season. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you said, celebration. I mean, it's definitely a wintry celebration IPA. So,
piney, darker in color, all that. Yeah.
Are you going to make a Christmas beer, Mike? Have you already made a Christmas beer?
We make Tree Tipper every year, which is a spruce tip and honey saison. That was kind of our unofficial Christmas beer. And then we also did something on that like Belgian spiced ale tradition that is kind of exclusively available. It will be on our website at some point, but it's exclusively available in like a advent calendar box for beer on the wall. So not to plug another retailer, but you did ask. So, and that one has like ginger, cinnamon, allspice, clove, and cardamom. So a little twist on it, but
got it. Okay. Well, I'm sure it'll be one of the 30 best beers in that box. So,
well, there's I hope so because there's only 25 things in an advent calendar box, so we'll probably be coming hot at number 30.
Gotta be top
exactly. Well, no, there's the divider, there's the outer box. One of the things. I said one of the 30 best things.
Yeah, that's
There's
true.
Probably like a sheet of paper that describes them all.
Yeah,
I think you're going to beat the
we
paper.
might sneak into
some
the
tape closing the box up.
Man. Not everyone loves the spiced saison out in the western suburbs, so we'll see.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, tasting really good.
Yeah,
I'll have to bring you a bottle so I can't sell it to you.
Yeah. If you give me a whole advent box, I will rank everything beer and not beer from 1 to however many there are. Yeah. Maybe there's 1,000 things in that box.
Yeah, and depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. And then we'll take it from there. Is that it? Or have we just hot take historied Christmas beer? Where do you think, is there going to be another iteration on Christmas beer? I don't think Christmas beer is going anywhere. Like the status of it, except if those clowns in Congress finally win their war on Christmas, then maybe they would outlaw.
Yeah, so the beer that we made that's in that
Yeah.
box is actually a saison non-denomination, and it has a Christmas tree and a menorah and some Kwanzaa stuff on it. So,
Jeez,
Nice.
what a can't take a stand on anything, can you?
no, I'm the most wishy-washy guy ever. You know that.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think that. Honestly, I believe like what Great Lakes does with the American Christmas ale is kind of like the pinnacle of that version of the Christmas celebration beer. Like as you said, there's other, breweries making their own version of, the Yule idea of like this winter seasonal, this special beer. But that like spice thing that we're like, that's Christmas ale. I feel like that's
right.
There's no
Which definitely inspired by Christmas baking, Christmas breads, Christmas cookies,
gingerbread,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like the pumpkin beers are inspired by some of the foods. I'm curious if it would ever go to something different. If it would draw inspiration from something different. I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see if there's another thing that's as impactful, right? Another thing that would be more iconic for the season, but I doubt it, at least right now.
Right.
Until we get to the smooge Christmas.
I was going to say, like, what are some, like, you go up that people, like, really find special about beers in modern U.S. In craft being. So, yeah, I guess you can make it stronger.
Beer,
but then, like, I was just thinking you
smooge.
could hop it, or then you could double. Like, you dry hop it, but then you could double dry hop it for Christmas. But that hasn't been done. So that's my $1 million idea. If you're listening out there, you're welcome. So next year, double dry hop
pastry
your
stout
IPA.
machine, customizable pastry stout machine, and the double
Well, no,
dry hop Christmas
that you can't
IPA.
talk about because that really is a $1 million idea.
It's more than
I have no idea what you guys are talking.
Perfect.
Neither do we.
He's
Anymore.
taking vigorous notes right,
right.
now.
Yeah.
Vigorous notes.
We're doing our best, but I think that's
I think we're
a pretty good history of the
Awesome.
Yeah.
well.
the
Mike,
rise of Christmas.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to say in closing? Is Christmas? First of all, I don't want it to be too like obviously of a commercial, but
Absolutely.
genuinely speaking, what are the dates for a Christmas sale? Is it like all the other seasonal beers? Is it out in May, or when is it? When does it come out?
No, we try not to.
When should we start lining up?
We try to not seasonal creep too
Day
much,
after
but
Easter.
it is out there. Yeah, so we always do last Monday of October is when it hits. That first pour party that I was talking about, that's the Thursday before market release. So that was a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago at this point. Hit the market, started shipping out the full week after that, and I was just building displays with our local rep yesterday, so it's out there everywhere. We did distribute the barrel age version too. So
Yeah, what's that? I don't know if I've had that before.
yeah, we did that in. We've done it in bombers in the past, but last year was the first time we decided to do some distribution for it. That was just Ohio, but this year we wanted to send it everywhere. So it's theoretic. I mean, I'm sure there's allocations and stuff like that from the local guys, whatever.
Right. But what is it? Like, what is the beer?
Yeah. So it actually is the straight up base Christmas ale.
Okay.
We don't brew an imperialized version
Right,
for
right.
it or anything like that. Just lay it down in some Buffalo Trace barrels for, I think they did about 6 months, so not too long, just enough to
Yeah.
get some of those vanilla notes that really work well with the grist and the spices, and throw it in. We did 4-pack 16-ounce cans this year for that one. And it's got a really nice wrap to it where you could kind of slide it right under the tree,
Nice.
ready to go as a little gift type thing. So.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, that's in a Fobab. We did, and we have Blackout Stout, the Imperial Stout, that we brought back after a couple of years. We got the BA version of that for Fobab, too.
Nice.
No adjuncts in this house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, sorry.
Like Christmas
Ginger and
ale,
cinnamon
yeah.
and stuff like that. Well, whatever.
While you have it, there's one thing I need to put on the record, which is your real ale cask program, which you should bring back, I would say. I had an
the pub?
amazing...
Oh,
just generally speaking.
For
for
distribution
anything.
and all that stuff.
I had some.
Yeah.
I think I had a.
Totally.
It was a. I think it might have been a blackout stout cask one time at a special event at Sheffield's, and it was, I think, still like a memorable. It was like one of the best beers I can remember having. It was amazing. So
Yep.
Sounds delicious.
anyway,
Yeah.
yes. So good luck on that.
I will
Gotta do it.
I will do my best to advocate for real ale back at the brewery.
Yes. We asked, and they're like, "Yeah, that program has kind of gone away."
I'd love to see it in the pub.
Yeah.
Out for you guys too. You know.
Let us know when it's out, and we'll come out.
Right.
Yeah, we'll be right there with a trailer of fatheads behind us. So awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. And
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So many
Michael. Yes. Mike's. And yeah, we'll I don't know when we'll be on next. I don't know when this one's going to make its way out, but
Probably in December.
Yeah. Happy Easter, everybody. All right. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted.